America.
Well, she has a couple of things that a lot of people
Let
follow
us
now,
show
like
each
she wants to take
other
away
and
your
the
guns.
world
we
who we are.
freedom,
And what
Or how
we
about this? She
stand
wants to defund the
for.
police. Are you okay with
Freedom,
that?
dignity,
opportunity,
fairness, and
compassion,
endless possibilities.
dignity,
Now,
fairness,
place. They don't sleep so much. And we have a guy sleeping. I said, why don't I just walk up? I don't have to waste a lot of time. You're all fans, right? Is anybody here not going to vote for Trump? I'm just kidding. Raise your hand if you have the courage to do that. Place. They don't sleep so much. And we have a guy
I said, why do I have to make
just walk up? I don't have to waste a lot of time.
सुबह सुबह फोन पर आज से योगा शुरू करने का सोच रही हूँ, इसलिए योगा मैट, हेडबैंड्स, शूज ये सब ऑर्डर कर रही थी।
Raise your hand if you have the courage to do that.
अरे सुबह ऑर्डर और शाम को सब डिलीवर कैसे?
Amazon Prime से
ये Amazon Prime तो सच में
सुबह सुबह फोन ये सब ऑर्डर कर रही थी।
Fellow Americans, this election is not only the most important of our lives, it is one of the most important in the life of our nation. In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious. Consider not only the chaos and calamity when he was in office, but also the gravity of what has happened since he lost the last election. Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes. When he failed, he sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol, where they assaulted law enforcement officers. When politicians in his own party begged him to call off the mob and send help, he did the opposite. He fanned the flames. And now, for an entirely different set of crimes, he was found guilty of fraud by a jury of everyday Americans. He fanned the flames. And now, separately for an entirely different set of crimes, he was found guilty of fraud by a jury of everyday Americans. He fanned the flames. And now, separately for an entirely different set of crimes, he was found guilty of fraud by a explicit intent to set free violent extremists who assaulted those law enforcement officers at the Capitol. His explicit intent to jail journalists, to set political opponents, and anyone he sees as the enemy. His explicit intent, our active duty military against our own citizens. Consider the power he will have, especially after the United States Supreme Court just ruled that he would be immune from criminal prosecution. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails. And how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States. Not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself. And we know what a second Trump term would look like. It's all laid out in Project 2025, written by his closest advisors, and its sum total is to pull our country back to the past. But America, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back.
In addition, as part of our efforts to help working families, I'm announcing today in a major statement that under the Trump administration, your government will pay for, or your insurance company will be mandated to pay for, all costs associated with IVF treatment, fertilization for women, IVF treatment. Because we want more babies, to put it very nicely. And for this same reason, we will also allow new parents to deduct major newborn expenses from their taxes, so that parents that have a beautiful baby will be able. So we're pro-family. Nobody's ever said that before. But the IVF treatments are expensive. It's very hard for many people to do it and to get it. But I've been in favor of IVF right from the beginning. You know, if you talk to them, they'll say, oh, he really doesn't like, they have ads like I'm against it. It's just the opposite. By comparison, they're against it, but I'm totally in favor of it. I always say there are two awards: is the Medal of Honor, and oftentimes is posthumously, where, you know, they're not there. Oftentimes they've died in battle and they're getting the award. And then you have the civilian version, the Presidential Medal. And I always say I'd rather get the Presidential Medal, because the guys that came in, other than you and a few others,
I stretch my limits. No sweat. Not a wrinkle of worry. I'm Rutraj Gaikwad, and I choose to rise.
Kamala Harris, she just doesn't care about the American people, especially hardworking people or middle-class Americans. She just doesn't give a damn about you. So I go there, they ask me to have a picture, and they say I was campaigning. I don't need, the one thing I get is plenty of publicity. I don't need that. I don't need the publicity. They asked me to go yesterday to Arlington, and I did. And while I was there, I was there for a long time. It was very tough to get to because I was not in a good position to get there. It was very far away, but I did. I made it my, and I got there right on time. And I spent a lot of time there. And while I was there, those families that asked me to be there, as they said, 3 families plus 1 soldier who was horrifically injured, both legs and an arm. And they asked me if I would be there, so I went. And while we were there, they said, could you take pictures over the grave of my son, my sister, my brother? Would you take pictures with us, sir? I said, absolutely, I did. And then I said farewell. I said goodbye. And last night I read that I was using the site to politic, that I used it to politic. This all comes out of Washington, just like all of these prosecutors come out of Washington. They all come out.
So we're here to speak truth. And one of the things that we know, this is going to be a tight race until the very end. Okay? So let's not pay too much attention to the polls, because we are running as the underdog. Okay? And we have some hard work ahead of us, but we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work is good work. Ours is a fight for the future. And it is a fight for freedom. Like the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. And if he wins, Donald Trump will go further. He will sign a national abortion ban. You best believe. Why don't they trust women? Well, we trust women. And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. Proudly. And across our nation, in addition to that, we are witnessing a full-on assault on other hard-fought, hard-won fundamental freedoms and rights. Hold up for a second. Let me just say something. We are fighting for a democracy. Everyone has a right and should have their voices heard. I am speaking now, but on the subject, I will say this. The President and I are working around the clock. We've got to get a hostage deal done and get a ceasefire done now. The stakes in 2024 are even higher because consider that the United States Supreme Court recently just basically told the former president that going forward he will be effectively immune no matter what he does in the White House. Understand what it now means and imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails.
And they asked me if I would be there, so I went. And while we were there, they said, could you take pictures over the grave of my son, my sister, my brother? Would you take pictures with us, sir? I said, absolutely, I did. And then I said farewell. I said goodbye. And last night I read that I was using the site to politic.
You know, I have friends that are buried at Arlington National Cemetery in that same section. I was there when we buried one of my roommates who died on a deployment. I take it very seriously, but President Trump and those families would not have been there if Joe Biden hadn't led to the absolute direct failure of leadership.
Every time I've seen.
ओ भाई साहब लाइन में आ जाओ मैं लाइन वाइन में नहीं रुकता
Rapido.
बाइक वाली टैक्सी सबसे सैक्सी बाइक वाली टैक्सी सबसे सैक्सी
And they didn't treat the families of the victims very well. They don't want this brought up and they don't want this discussed. Donald Trump is showing the respect for these families that they deserve.
I look forward to the debates because I think we have to set the record straight.
If you've got something to say it to my face.
Yeah, the stakes for Tuesday night's debate couldn't be any greater. We saw the June Atlanta debate, the impact that these presidential debates can have in a race, but right now, clearly we have the two candidates, and this debate is occurring at a time when people are just finishing up the summer, tuning in to the race post-Labor Day, making very important decisions, and this is kind of the first time they'll get to see both candidates on the stage together. I think it's the first time they've ever been in the same room.
President Donald J. Trump.
Good afternoon.
There's no other event in the campaign, speeches, press conferences, the conventions that will gather anywhere near this number, this audience of tens of millions. Super Bowl, approaching Super Bowl-like ratings. And so we have this one night, one opportunity for both to reach so many people. A minute from a 90-minute debate could impact thousands, tens of thousands of votes, which it could be enough for this very close election expected in November. Trump, this may be his last chance to change the narrative and the trajectory of the race. He obviously was doing much better in the national and battleground polling against President Biden, and now everything is tightened. And so this probably is going to be the only debate. And so if trying to change the narrative, the focus, this 90-minute event will be the way to do it. I think the stakes are both for great. They're great for both candidates. Maybe a little higher for Harris in that she's not as defined, and she's had such a good rollout from July through picking the vice presidential candidate, the convention speech. She's won a lot of the news cycles, and so people are expecting a lot, especially if they don't know a lot about her going into it. Given it's one night only, and the unique history and circumstances surrounding it, it's going to be unforgettable and could go down as one of the most impactful presidential debates of all time.
So, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. This is a long and complicated web and story, but it all goes back to the DOJ and Kamala and Sleepy Joe and all the rest of them. We have a whole rigged election system. We had a trial today. It's an appeal of a ridiculous verdict of a woman I have never met. I don't know. I have no idea who she is. She wrote a book and she made a ridiculous story in her book, and we're now appealing the decision. We had an extremely hostile judge appointed by Clinton, very good friends of Clinton. I have no idea who the woman is, and I never met her. Now, I don't know about a picture that was taken 40 years ago with her husband on a celebrity line, so I don't think that counts. But as far as I know, I never met her. I never touched her. I would have had no interest in meeting her in any way, shape, or form. There were two witnesses. One is a woman who's followed me for years. She said in 1979, I was in an airplane with her, commercial flight, and we became very intimate. I just sat down. I think I had the book, The Art of the Deal. I was famous then, too. I've been famous for a long time. And we're sitting in first class, according to her. Never happened, by the way. Totally made up story. She's a Clinton person, too, by the way, big Clinton person. And she said, I was making out with her. And then, after 15 minutes, and then she changed her.
सब कुछ मुझे ही करना पड़ेगा। ठीक से सोए? ठीक से सोए? चलो बढ़िया। हंसती हो तो बहुत प्यारी लगती हो आंटी।
अच्छा लगता है जब कोई हमारे बारे में सोचता है तो गुड मॉर्निंग ही नहीं पूछिए डिड यू स्लीप वेल।
And frankly, I know you're going to say it's a terrible thing to say, but it couldn't have happened. It didn't happen. And she would not have been the chosen one. She would not have been the chosen one. I feel sad that I have to come up here and explain it. I have all this legal talent, but legal talent cannot overcome rigged judges. They can't overcome a 4% Republican area. And I'm disappointed in my legal talent, I'll be honest with you. They're good. They're good people. They're talented people.
Your next United States Senator, Representative Elisa Slotkin. And I always want to thank Representatives Dingell. And let me say, every person in our nation has benefited from that work. Everywhere I go, I tell people, look, you may not be a union member. You better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time. That's what we are fighting for. And so we are 64 days out from the election day. And in Michigan, mail-in absentee. When unions are strong, America is strong. President Kringle of NEA. President, tell you, I think that there has been a certain backward-thinking approach over the last several years, which is to suggest them folks, to suggest that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of what we know, the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. A business, and to build wealth and interject. And I'll remind everybody on all these bills, we celebrate unions because unions helped build America, and unions help build America's middle class. It is true across our nation, and it is true here in Detroit. Nearly 140 years ago, in this very city, 10,000 people marched in one of our nation's first Labor Day parades. Ordinary work. Don't we love Labor Day? We love Labor Day. It's always been there.
Big news today is that the Manhattan DA witch hunt against me has been postponed because everyone realizes that there was no case because I did nothing wrong. It's a witch hunt. It's an attack by my political opponents in Washington, D.C. As we gather today, American cities, suburbs, and towns are totally under siege. Kamala Harris and the communist left have unleashed a brutal plague of bloodshed, crime, chaos, misery, and death upon our land. In city after city, the law-abiding citizen is forced to live in fear and danger and in filth. Mothers can't take their kids to the park. Graffiti is everywhere. The innocent are victimized in random attacks. Very brutal attacks and slayings are absolutely commonplace. Mobs of criminals walk into stores and clean out thousands of dollars in merchandise with absolutely no fear of punishment because you're not allowed to do your jobs. Over the past 4 years, Kamala Harris and the radical